Hi friends, this is Laura with Potpourri of Life. I apologize if there's a glare on my glasses. I was going to do it without my glasses. That's no good. I can see, but for some reason I just need my glasses on. So here I am today. It's been a while since I've been on here to chit chat or share anything because, as I've shared before, my husband and I have been working on his father's estate, trying to close up and get things taken care of. Today we finally signed papers. Yay, it's over. That part of our journey in life is complete. But it was a journey, to say the least. There were moments of frustration. There were moments of unbelievable, it's like, how much stuff is there? And you know, when you're cleaning a house out for new owners, there's a lot of things you have to get rid of. So for the most part, Dave and I did fabulous together. We just went in, we did the job, we just kind of went about and did stuff. And it was hard for our daughter because she lived there. And so she had her stuff with the boys and all that she had to organize so that she could move out. And it was really kind of an interesting dynamic in the sense that a house full of two family items. I'm not even saying that right. But it was a lot of stuff. So my daughter needed to focus on that while David and I took the task of making sure things were repaired. When the lights went out, we had to replace light bulbs. When different things happened, we were back over there fixing all the time because owning a house, there's always something that's going to go wrong and you have to fix it. And so what was happening is here at home, there were things that were getting, forgotten, like my gardens. I mean, I would work on my gardens a little bit, but by the time we got done, especially over the last month and a half, I was really tired. So we just kept on getting things done. We got the house all cleaned up. We had a couple of dumpster loads because there were some things we couldn't sell, we couldn't give it away. So we ended up throwing things in the dumpster, it was kind of unfortunate. But that's okay because there's only so much stuff David's sister or I could take into our own homes, and even still, I think we both agree that we probably still have too much stuff, never mind the stuff that we already have. So it was a journey of making decisions as to what was valuable, and towards the end, as we were filling the dumpster, my husband, there were some things that I told him, I said, I could really use that, but it got to the point where it was like, we were so tired, and we had the dumpster there, and he would say, Laura, do you have a place for this when we get home? Nope, dump it. We were both doing that because it was like one of those things that we had to get things taken care of. And so our last dumpster was there. We got it last week. It was supposed to be gone yesterday, but for some reason, I think what I found out is that the driver who usually picks it up, he went on vacation, but anyways, we signed the papers. The new buyers are okay with it. They did the walkthrough. They were happy. But it was a lot of work. And there were things that we discovered about the house. And I looked back because when my in-laws bought the house, I have to admit, once they were settled in, it was an interesting house. And I could see why they bought the house. Whereas before I never could. And I looked back and I thought, you know what? Mom was very creative. Dad was creative. And very similar to my husband and I, David's dad did great carpentry, woodworking type things. Mom did a lot of quilting and she did other things. She was also a special needs school teacher. She mostly worked with nursery school children. So, those type people, creative people, or we tend to kind of hang on to things because we can incorporate it into the next project or whatever. Most especially quilters or seamstresses, we see fabric, it's like, oh, that's big enough to do this, and then we end up with an accumulation. Well, Mom's stuff has already been gotten rid of like 10, 12 years ago when she passed. And so we didn't have to worry about her stuff, but it was interesting because some things came to surface. But we had other things that came to surface, like Dad's leatherwork, his wood tools, all that kind of stuff. So it was really just kind of interesting of all the things that they incorporated. And I told Dave, I said, your dad and mom, we're very much like them, very different, but very much like them, because we see the potential in items that might be around us. And we've been known to take something that might have broke, and we'll take something apart and we'll make something. Like I think I've shared before, and I'll link it if I have, the wind chime that I made. I collect old keys. And so I had a bunch, and the bird feeders, we had a bear come through and knock a bunch of bird feeders and broke them. So what I did was I saved some of the pieces and we made a wind chime. It is my most favorite wind chime. And actually David made it. He took some of my beads, he took my collection of keys, and he took pieces of the bird feeder, and we made a wind chime. And it's one of my favorite. And that's the kind of mindset David's parents had too. But as we were going through the house, they saved a lot. But it made me stop and think, like, how much stuff am I saving that I don't need? So that's going to be our next journey, is kind of trying to reduce the clutter in our own home, or the stuff that we're not going to use. And if we have things that we've set aside to make a project, really think through, am I going to get to that? And that's something that I want to present to you is, are there things in your life that you're hanging on to for, like, when you retire? I'm retired. I took early retirement. So here I am. I'm busy as all get out. And I'm like, am I going to get to that? I have some cross-stitched items that I want to get to. I hope to get to. And so I have a hard time throwing that away or giving away or selling it and stuff. But there are a few things that I have come across. I told my husband, I said, I really want to sell this. I want to trash this. So we're going through a process ourselves, but we really couldn't dive into it because we were so busy with Dad's estate of items. So as you journey through, we're going through challenging times right now. The world is. I wasn't specifying Dave and I, but the world is changing in the sense that people are, like, not sure of what their needs are. But we have people that are just buying and buying and buying, not used items, but brand new items. The one thing that is really important to know is how valuable, how sturdy old items are. And I know that the C-clamps that we got out of Dad's shop, they're really good. And I've bought Dave some C-clamps, and some of them I try to buy really good quality ones. So it was really kind of neat to be able to find some that, I don't have to buy him any this year, because every Christmas I buy him some C-clamps. I think he has enough now. And so he got to go through all Dad's tools and stuff, so he really benefited there. But the one thing that I noticed about myself, and I've always been this way, is that when there's a job to do, because even though this was my husband's responsibility, one of the things that was really hard for me is to just let him do it all by himself, because we're a team. We got married, we've been a team, we do things for each other. And I missed him while he was at the estate fixing things and stuff. So when there was times where we had to do cleanup, I would go with him and I would work. The only times I got frustrated were like, because my daughter's moving out, so she had stuff in the way, so I couldn't get to things. And so I felt frozen. And I've always been that way. Like, if at work, when I was working outside the home, if there was nothing to do, it kind of like, yeah, I just can't function and do nothing, because I could go home and read a book and I'd be fine, or do stuff at the house. So it was, that part was hard. But when I got there, David was doing some things because he had to take things off. But I would get in there, and I finally got to Dad's workbench, and I asked Dave, did you already go through this? Did your sister already go through this? Who's gone through this that needs anything? So the next thing he knows is I'm like, okay. So I'm taking things, okay, this stuff goes together here, this goes here. And so I was boxing things up. He had no idea what was where and when. So we got all that taken care of, and that's the way I work. And I wanted to keep going because I wanted the process done. That's how my brain works. When something has to get done, we get it done. So the house is done. It's sold. It's new owners, a young couple. And the house needs a lot of updates, So fortunately, they're young. And they'll be able to work on this and make it their own. But as I looked back at this house, and I think I alluded to this earlier, as I looked back at this house, I walked into the living room, and I had forgotten about they had a fireplace. Off to the side, there was a place for wood that you brought in from outside. Over the time, Dad had closed up the chimney because they stopped using their wood stove because they got older and they didn't want to use it. And I think there was a time there where they had the wood stove down cellar, and we had to get that out of there too. But in doing that, instead of putting wood in that place, he put like a little entertainment unit that fit like a CD or VHS holder type thing, which they used to put the player on. And so it fit perfect, and then they had the TV over it, so you never even gave it another thought after that change took place. But I sat back, actually I stood back, there was no place to sit because everything was out. I went into each room and I saw some amazing things that they did. I loved the windows that they installed. And I could see why Mom did that. She really liked the bay window effect so that she could put something beautiful. And she had 2 rooms she put those bay windows in. In the living room where the fireplace was, I looked and I said, wow, it's too bad we didn't use that fireplace more often, because it would provide such a nice, cozy atmosphere, and I hope that the new owners are able to enjoy that for the... There was some other things that yesterday was it, when we were cleaning up the last, because we would go in, not yesterday, the day before, we would go in and just do a sweep through every day up until it was time for the new buyers to do the walkthrough. We would go in and make sure there was nothing else that was going on or something new happened or whatever. And then I went into the furnace room. I'm like, I'm not going in there. Actually, there was nothing wrong with it. It was a good sized room, but it was all rocks and everything. And so there was no lights in there. I guess you would have to bring in your own light. So it was kind of creepy. And I told David, I says, I'm talking to the ghosts in here. I'm telling them not to bother me. I'm here to be good. Because it was an older home. And it had been built on. So I know if you think I'm being silly, that I did. I got that kind of creepy feeling that there's spirits here. Nobody that I know died there, but it just kind of gave me that sense that there were spirits in the house. And so I just said, okay, God, let your angels take over this home and bless this home, because whose spirits, I don't know. But I do hope and pray that this young couple enjoys the different aspects. But that furnace room is kind of interesting. Our furnace is down cellar. We got a basic furnace, basic cellar and everything. And then the house was built on. So you had your furnace room underneath the main house, and as the house was built on, the living room was added on. So you had this new cellar area, and then it was just kind of a really interesting house. And then upstairs, Dad and Mom did renovate the kitchen. And while they're there, they actually added on a bedroom off the kitchen with a new shower. So I looked back, you can see the modern from the old. You can see different aspects of why they did it. They put like a sunroof in the kitchen because there was no light in there. It was very dark because the kitchen was like in the middle of the house. And then they built a pantry out, and there was another bathroom. I think these new owners were talking about renovating the kitchen and all that. That's what we sense from what they were talking. So it'll be really nice for them, and I can see the potential of that change. But what's really interesting is when Mom and Dad moved in, they did a renovation. They did put new flooring in. They did put new cupboards, and I don't know how new the cupboards were, but they did a lot of stuff that was kind of interesting. But I have to say, I'm really happy that we're done with this closing. That house is not for us, even though I saw potential. My husband says, why are you doing that? Why are you looking at the potential? Because they had a beautiful, huge garage, which was barn-like and stuff, and I loved it. It had another floor. It was huge, David could have had a shop there. And no, we never wanted the house. Then there was another shed that was built. And all of it was kind of the shed and the garage are kind of our style. The living room fireplace was kind of our style. And so he asked me, he goes, why are you doing this? Why are you reminiscing about what you never wanted? I said, it's not that. I said, even though I didn't like this house and for years, I said, I don't know why your parents bought this. After I've aged. They were there for 40 years, if that tells you anything. They bought it 3 years after David and I married. And I realized that they bought it because it had the potential that they were looking at. And I could see that. Maybe it's because I've gotten older and I see things, I see different things in a home, the potential very differently. But I'm glad that we sold it. I'm glad that they didn't leave the house to David because he didn't want it. His sister didn't want it. And, it's just a lot of work that's involved in that house. But it had gardens. It had berries, blueberries. I did go pick a handful of blueberries while I was out there, 6 of them. And six bushes. And there was a lot. And the raspberries, they had a ton of raspberries out back. They used to have grapes. I don't know where they are because things have gotten overgrown over the years because Dad just didn't have the time. And Dave would go over as much as he could. But, as we helped Dad, it was like a couple times a month and we would go over and tend to things. And so the house has a lot of potential and I'm praying that this new couple enjoys it. But as we reflect on the closing, David and I were talking about, even though there were times that challenged our hearts, and I can't go into detail of what they were, but for David and I, we actually grew. Man, you wouldn't think that a hard task of moving a family member out, trying to close something, trying to get something sold, and all this, because there was a lot of dynamics, and then all these memories of things. The longer we worked together on this, and it was a long journey, the closer we got. And it was really awesome when we sat back and said, we haven't hardly argued at all. He goes, no. Because most often in relationships, there is that tendency not to argue where you hate each other, but to have disagreements and not be able to resolve. And we just kind of we would just be honest. I'm having a hard time, my anxiety, and David has worse anxiety than I do, or can, when there's so much going on. But I'll tell you, he did an awesome job as an executor. And I told him, I said, you did really well. And I was really impressed because David doesn't do the bills for our house, I do them. And I told him, I said, I can't do 2 households. And so he took that task on. And Dad's just like us. We only have a handful of bills. You have just your utilities, and so those things were easy. It was like you pay the water, pay the electric, pay the oil. That's what Dave had to do, and that's what we do here. But I didn't want to take on 2 households because that needed to be his responsibility. And it was just kind of like I told him so many times, I am so proud of you, because what happened was he was forced into something that had to be done. I'm so proud of him because he didn't throw his hands up and say, Laura, I need you to do this. He did ask for help, but he didn't ask in the sense that he wanted me to do it. I think in part he might have wanted me to do it all, but I couldn't. And there was a lot of heavy work and all that. I am just really grateful how we came together like a team. And that to me has just made our relationship even stronger. But this whole situation, because Dave and I have been wanting to move prior to the world falling apart. We were already making plans to move, and this is what we wanted to do. But we learned something. We got to get rid of stuff. And because of all the stuff we had to do for Dad, we didn't have time. We've been watching what's out there for houses, and boy, are they going quick. Here in New Hampshire, the prices keep rising. And what's happening is the good houses that you may want to purchase, which at our age, we really don't want to do a lot of renovation. They're higher than what we can afford. unfortunately. That's part of life. And is it disappointing? In a sense it is, because at our age we really don't want to do complete renovations, and we've found houses that are completely stripped and they want 300,000-400,000 for them, with some acreage, some not, and they're a mess. And then there's other homes that the houses that we're looking at that are kind of our style, they're so far out of there that it's like, okay, I can dream. But in the interim, once we are able to, we'll be able to put our house back on the market and then start seeing what we can do. In the interim, we've been able to see what we want, and we're trying to decide how much work do we want to do. We've gotten our house to where it's very energy efficient. It's smaller than I want because we're creative people. And we want a garage so that both of our cars don't have to be under the snow all winter. And we want space. We want more acreage so we can have a better garden and have a few animals and stuff like that. So we know what our wish is, and we give it to God every single night, saying, Lord, this is the desires of our hearts, and we know that you want to bless us. And so in your time, we ask that you show us the way and the house. He might not show us, and that's okay. You see, I think that's the nice thing about what we both have learned with this journey, is that we have a need to move because David's work is an hour away, and he has to leave an extra half hour early because accidents happen, which puts him behind. So, which is kind of sad because I miss having him around. All in all, though, the part that's most important is that our relationship did not fall apart. So if you are in the midst of helping parents, your parents have passed, don't be angry at all the stuff, and Dad had a lot of stuff. We felt bad because we had to throw away all the National Geographics, and it's like, I count, you went back to 1933. That's a lot of years of National Geographics. And we reached out to a number of people and nobody wanted them. And we knew that they would go for good money, but we didn't have time. So we had to let those type things go, something that may have value. But what's valuable in life? Is it a set of collectible magazines? Or is it time with each other? Is it time going through and realizing, like if you take something from the estate and you incorporate it into your own decor or into your own lifestyle, that's valuable. But if you're going to take something from the estate and put it in a corner because it was my dad's or whatever, then does it still have value to you? Do you put a price tag on it because it's an antique? That's the one thing that I have noticed. Some things that have that are antiques. Like someday I hope to have an old treadle singer machine. But people are trying to sell them for like $300-400 for machine. The tables are ruined. You can see, I can look at them and see they take too much money to fix them up, and I would just personally get rid of them. But that's what's happening, is we take things that we inherit or we find that are old, and we put a value on them that there is no value, but you think it is, but you can't get rid of it. So sometimes we need to stop and say, and this is what we had to do when we started deciding what we wanted to keep. And we do have some extra things that we gotta get rid of that. What is valuable there? What part of Dad's and Mom's estate do we want to carry in our hearts and through our decor and through our creative means? Hang on to those. But if it's something that says, I can make money off this, then I don't think your mind is where it needs to be. Sure, if that's your way of making money, that's awesome. But in some cases, it kind of deters you because that piece might not sell for a long time and just sit in a corner. We've done some things like that. We had some things out by the side of the road. After we tried selling them, We'd put it by the side of the road. If they didn't go, out they went to the dump, because we knew they had value. But there gets to be a point where stuff overwhelms you. Stuff becomes invasive to a very fulfilling life. And my value is with my husband. And our kids are grown, and yes, we have grandchildren, and we love and adore them. But the stuff as we kept pulling out became to be too overwhelming. And even for David, things that I could care less about, because it's not about my growing up. And he would go through and he goes, I don't need this. So he would toss it. And that was a very healthy exercise. We still have more to throw away that's here at our home, and that we'll go right through and take care of. But what I wanted to share with you is cleaning up an estate is a hard work. Be prepared for something like that. But I don't want you to go to your parents, the ones that have a lot of stuff, unless they're hoarders. That needs intervention, because we want to keep our aging parents healthy. We want to keep them safe so they're not tripping and so forth. So as long as they don't have that hoarding overwhelmness, then they still have lots of stuff. You might find things in their attic or in their cellar. We found things in the cellar. It's like, where did that come from? We found a trunk that I was so tempted, but it was like, it needed work. And I said no. And David knew I wanted it. And finally he says, Laura, what's your thoughts? I said, get rid of it, because I have a few trunks that I'm happy with. And I said, no, just get rid of it. I don't have time for this. And that's what we did. We got rid of it. But as your aging parents get to a point where you're seeing them spending more time at the doctors and so forth, have a sit down. Have a quiet sit down with them. Do not put them down. Have a gentle conversation with them and ask, what are your thoughts about going through your things that maybe we can pass on or possibly sell so you have some resources to work with, or possibly donate to charity? What are your thoughts? Like if David wasn't into fishing, I think he just took a few things from Dad's fishing stuff, because he really didn't need anything. I have my own fishing stuff, so we didn't really need much. And so if my brother-in-law didn't need it, then we got rid of it, because there's only so much fishing stuff that you need. But you can do that with them. Go through and say, we want you to keep what you enjoy having, but let's go through the things you're not using anymore. Because like Dad would no longer go out on the canoe. We have the canoe. We're going to sell it because it's too heavy for us. But he wouldn't go out to certain places anymore because his body was preventing him from doing that. So talk to your parents and ask them, is there anything you're not using anymore that we could potentially sell for you or incorporate into our own lives? What is it? And just talk to them about it. A lot of the things that our parents have are memories. There were like a calendar with a picture of his mom and dad at the store that my father-in-law grew up in. That's precious to him. And I don't know which family member got that, because that is a memory that goes way back, and it's family history and stuff. But there's other things that we just didn't need. I think that's the part that's really important. You make their lives a little bit more comfortable. And even though David went in and helped with when lights went out, or if certain things needed to be repaired, we could, as we look back, we could have said, what else can we do to make your life more comfortable? And that's what we got to think about. Dad got rid of a lot of stuff when Mom passed. And, David's sister and I, we sat down, because a lot of Mom's stuff was kitchen stuff. But we didn't want to take all of it because Dad needed it at the house. And so we ended up having to sort through it as after Dad's passing. So as you enter an era of your life where you might have a parent or grandparents that are slowly downsizing, Or if they ask you, is there anything of mine that you would like me to leave to you? That's what they're saying is they realize that they're not here forever, but they want to honor you. Is there anything here that you would like to incorporate into your own life? We understand, David and I do, there's a lot of people, we understand that you don't want all our stuff. We know that. But some people do think that this is all valuable, you're going to want it. But that's not true. Society has changed where the younger people want something new. They don't really treasure the old stuff. David and I treasure the old stuff, but the younger generation doesn't, pretty much, unless it's something of memories for them. So keep that in mind when they start asking you, is there anything of mine that you would like to have? Just say, this is something that means something to me. And there was there were two things. One was a big black kettle, cast iron kettle, and because she incorporated myself in this as well. And then there was a little Indian prayer on a linen thing that used to be like a calendar. That's all I wanted. And when Dad passed, there was a few things that I did inherit, and they were things that I made them as a couple, some things that I cross-stitched and stuff like that. And it was just like, I didn't know they still had it, because they would change out to make room for the new stuff that was given to them. And that's another thing. We sometimes give people stuff over time, and we do it because we know they're going to like it. But sometimes we can give too much. They love schnauzers, and they loved different things. They loved moose and schnauzers. And we got to the point where a lot of people were just giving puzzles because we didn't know what else to give them. I think sometimes what we need to do as our parents age and grandparents age is like, let's take them out to dinner. Let's take them someplace that they enjoy. Do they like the parks that have a lot of flowers? Instead of having stuff accumulate in their homes, little trinkets and stuff like that, maybe step out of that routine of buying a gift. Instead of buying a gift, saying, I want to spend time with you. And when you do that, put it in the calendar and don't forget them, because they think of you all the time. Our parents are a treasure. So I just want to leave a note with you that I am back. I don't know, I've got a lot of stuff to do here at the house, but I just wanted to come on today to share a little bit that I haven't been missing in action intentionally. It's just that by the time we get done with a day's worth of work, I was in bed. I was so fatigued every single night, even the days I didn't go over there, because there was so much to do. So I'm not sure I'm going to be on every single day like I have been. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. I'm just going to let how the day goes, whether or not I'll be on. Folks, I want you to take care of yourselves. Don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget to love your parents. And if they're gone, treasure the memories. You don't have to have stuff to treasure it, but treasure those memories and pass them on to your own children. And the things that they taught you, even if you grew up in a dysfunctional family, kind of go through those cobwebs and pull out the treasures that are there. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, but there are some things that I have pulled out over the last few years of saying, this was a good thing. May not have been perfect, but there were some good things of my childhood that I can cherish. Once you heal, you're able to find things that are amazing and are, in the ability to cherish. So hang on to the people that you love. There's not enough good people in the world, but we can all be good people. Folks, I hope that your night is a blessing to you, and I hope that God comes along and blesses your heart with whatever it is that your needs are. God bless and have a great night.